You, of course, are listening to the MHA podcast. Why in the world would you play Isaiah McKenzie over your third-round pick, T. Higgins? Why? I like any quarterback that can make Will Fuller look good.
I love it. I think he's a top 20 receiver.
I mean, he is the Jamar Chase whisperer.
Oh, hell yes. Oh, my God.
You know, everybody loves Lamar Jackson.
Hated it.
I trust Derek Carr.
Come on. For real?
I know why you did. It's because you're crazy.
It's still of the week, and the games aren't even over yet. It's great. It's fantastic.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Patrick Mahomes. Looks so good. Kyle Pitts was bad. Stank.
It's not my shebang. Justin Jefferson.
So good.
We could call him Russell Wilson if you want.
Ooh.
But
Well done, sir. That is good stuff. All of those guys have more fantasy points than Tom Brady. I'm laughing, but I'm crying at the same time. It's terrible. Good evening from the MHA podcast. It's that time to hand out some awards from this past MHA fantasy football season. I'm your host, Eric Lansing, along with my co-hosts, Mikey Renault and Todd Diamond. We're going to hand out some awards, the T.Y. Hilton Award, the worst move of the year, followed, of course, by the best move of the year, comeback player of the year, the most surprising player of the year, and, of course, everyone's favorite two awards, the bust of the year and the most valuable player of the year. Fellas, how we doing on this awards gala evening? Handing out some awards.
Outside.
You guys excited? What's that?
I said it's cold outside.
It is cold outside.
It's
yes.
cold. I was going to say. No, feeling good. We get to hand out some awards, and see if we were right or wrong on because we were debating, when we were coming up with the nominees, and we had some good ones, but I think we can all agree. My team is awesome, so I think my whole team deserves.
What? What's this got to do with your team?
Because I think the MVP that we discussed.
So you're gonna spoil it right here for everyone? Is that what you're doing right now? This is why you don't host the show right here.
I know, but I am the champ. But I am the champion. So I'm just saying.
Mikey, how are we gonna be able to deal with this for 364 days or whatever the heck it's gonna be?
well, I guess we're just going to have to lump it.
I guess so. The worst lump in history. Maybe we could trade Todd for another co-host. So if anybody's out there looking to be on the show, happy to trade Todd for you. So we don't have to hear him say that he's the champ 10 times a show. You cool with that, Todd?
I mean, you can see what you can get for him. You guys tried to, in the past, people have tried to trade me and they can't even get a, bag of Cheetos. So,
but your value will never be more higher than it is right now.
It is, but I mean, come on now. I have to give the people what they want. I mean, come on. That's one of the many reasons. One of the many reasons, not the number one reason, but one of the many reasons people tune into this podcast because they want to hear what outrageous things I'm going to say or, if I'm on something. So it's great. It's great. It's fantastic.
See, I always thought I got a bad rap for you saying that I'm not humble. See,
smug.
Like Todd's like on another level.
Hey, I don't get a lot of wins in my life. Okay, so this is a small victory, and I'm gonna milk it. I'm gonna milk it for all it's worth.
I'm proud of you, Todd.
I'll give you something to milk. But let's start handing out some awards. And we will start with the T.Y. Hilton Award. And of course, T.Y. Hilton Award was named after the gentleman because he was started way too many times a few years ago, putting up almost next to nothing in terms of points. And it just kind of added up and added up. And last year's winner was, of course, Kyle Pitts. Would Kyle Pitts be among the nominees? Well, let's find out who those 2023 nominees are for the T.Y. Hilton Award. Alexander Madison. He was drafted in the 4th round by Cooper's Cousins, and he played him 9 times, and he would finish 38th overall. and have 3 total touchdowns. Not a good season for the gentleman who took over for Dalvin Cook in Minnesota. How about Gabe Davis? Also drafted by Cooper's Cousins. He played him 7 times, just once in double figures, and also had 0 points 3 times. And how about Dameon Pierce? Eaton W's, finished 53rd amongst all running backs, 14 games played, 416 rush yards, 13 receptions, 2 total touchdowns. He was drafted in the 4th round by Kevin, and he started him 10 times, twice in double figures, 3 times. Oh, excuse me. Yes, he was in double figures 3 times, but under 10, 7 times. So the winner of the T.Y. Hilton Award, let me open up the card here in my fancy tuxedo, and the winner is Dameon Pierce. What a terrible season for the Texans running back, who 1 season ago was pretty incredible. Gentlemen, I felt like we were all in the same consideration. We all voted for this, right? Like, there's no surprise that he was the T.Y. Hilton Award, right, Mikey?
No, not at all. And where's Kevin to accept this award and thank him for his awesome draft pick that he's going to have going into next year? Thank you to Dameon Pierce. I mean, in all reality, like, as bad as Pierce was, it's just a lot of it's probably difference in philosophy with what the Texans went to from last year to this year, with actual functioning quarterback and a pass game that is so much better, and finding out that Devin Singletary is much better. So there you go.
You'll probably hear about Devin Singletary a little later on in the show, but you're right. Things change for them. You'd figure that they would, with them scoring more points, that would benefit Dameon Pierce. But this also goes back to running backs, tough to come by, had to start him in his situation, and it just kept on not paying off. So Dameon Pierce is your winner for T.Y. Hilton, for the T.Y. Hilton Award. Let's go to our next award. It's the worst move of the year. This award can be handed out for a dropped player, or for a trade that didn't go an owner's way, or a draft pick that went terribly, terribly wrong. Last year's winner was Najee Harris, who was drafted 3rd overall by the Butterfingers, and nary did he live up to that expectation. So here are the nominees for the 2023 Worst Move of the Year award. We'll start things off with the Gonzo Cats drafting Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback. The second nominee, how about Cooper Cousins again? He ended up dropping Devin Singletary minutes before the game on Sunday in Week 10. Singletary did have a total of 15 points in his last 4 games played, but then scored 22 points that day he dropped him. In fact, I think he scored a touchdown maybe minutes after the drop. Lion Rip would pick him up, and he would have 5 games of 9 or more points, including 19 that first week Lion Rip got to use him. And guess who Lion Rip played that week? Cooper's Cousins. Cooper's Cousins would eventually lose to Lion Rip in that victory, and that would have made a difference. And, of course, Lion Rip would go to the playoffs. Another nominee, our third and final nominee, is Jalen Hurts, being drafted in the 3rd round by the NWA after drafting Lamar Jackson in the 2nd. And so, who is the winner of this year's Worst Move of the Year? And Emma Stone, let us know who won. No, we don't have Emma Stone. We don't have any celebrities here today, except Todd, because he's the champion. I guess he's considered a champion. But the winner is the drafting of Jalen Hurts. Now, it wasn't necessarily the drafting of 2 quarterbacks back-to-back, but it was the fact that he didn't trade either quarterback for better pieces to fully fill out his roster. And we've talked about it on the show, so we don't have to go too deep into it. But, I mean, that would have been the idea. And I think that's what his idea was when he went with that, knowing he goes, well, there's another top quarterback. I should draft him and trade and see what I can get for him. That never happened. And so, Todd, is this the one you voted for? And give me some of your thoughts on that.
Well, first and foremost, he drafted 3 quarterbacks, and I think at the end of the day, we thought, okay, he'll trade one of them and able to get, a top flight running back, wide receiver, whatever the case may be. And, all of those points that were either sitting on his bench, that he could have, granted, if he was playing the matchups, fine, but I think he could have, I don't know, he could have utilized it a little bit more, better. And obviously, you need to pick one. I always say if you have, I think Mikey always brings this point up too, is if you have one or more of a position, you don't have none. You don't have any. Now, granted, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and Jordan Love, you could have traded any one of those three and still had one of the top, quarterbacks in fantasy. So to me, not the best. I mean, you either got to pick one, pick two, that's it. But three and not utilizing it, not the best.
So you actually, Todd, voted for the Daniel Jones as the starting quarterback. Why was that? Why did that stick out to you?
Because he sucks.
Well,
Mikey, I think, was kind of pushing for it at one point, but went Jalen Hurts after it was all said and done.
Yeah. You got to look at the Giants. I mean, they have no wide receivers at all, nada, zip, and and Saquon. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get from him because obviously he's capable of putting up, a lot of points and everything, but he's injury prone too. So, kind of staying away from situations where you're just like, why do I want to put myself through that? And that's what I felt with Daniel Jones. I mean, yeah, he had a great season last year, but I
wouldn't call it great. But
it was
what I will say, because I defended not putting Daniel Jones as the final of the winner, because last year he finished as a top 12 quarterback. Mm-hmm. That wasn't necessarily his passing that really got him into the top 12. It was more of his rushing, with 708 rush yards and 7 rushing touchdowns to go along with his 15 passing touchdowns. But he also had a bad wide receiver core last year. He had, Saquon Barkley, who had an incredible season 1 year ago, and it looked like, and I was wrong on this too, but I figured the Giants were heading in the right direction. Last year they get Dable, right, as their head coach, takes them to the playoffs in his first year. They pick up Darren Waller when healthy, really good tight end, and looked like things were progressing. So while, Daniel Jones is not a big completion quarterback, and obviously that's a big part of our scoring system for quarterbacks, but I wasn't anti Daniel Jones. I thought he would be better, and maybe this is how
gullible, Eric.
I don't know if gullible is the right word, but you see progression, right? He's a young quarterback. They just paid him all this money. Saquon's back and Waller's back, and if he did the same thing as he did last year, Gonzo Cats would have been a better place. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Mikey, you want to say anything about Hurts or Daniel Jones or Singletary?
No, Daniel Jones sucks, and I think we all knew that. There's no such thing as progression when it comes to him. It's like a bad food, like Brussels sprouts. I don't care how much chocolate sauce or hot sauce or whatever the hell you want to put on it. It's still going to be bad. All right.
But is 12th bad? Is 12th bad?
You're looking at an overall number. There's no context in that. Like, it doesn't tell you who else got injured so that he could, sleaze his way up to that number. I mean, it's trust your eyes.
Oh my God, that's pretty good.
Any of the people in the league will tell you he sucks.
So there you go. Anything else you guys want to say about the worst move of the year, or should we go on to the best move of the year?
Let's go on to the best
move. I just want to say, G's move, it was a very bold strategy. And sometimes in life, you get to learn things. He gets to learn that next time if he's going to, go down this road, then better make a deal, because otherwise you're going to end up close to last place. It's just the way it is.
There you go.
And that's the way.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. Let's go on to the best move of the season. Of course, can be any number of things that took place during the year. Last year's winner was the Gonzo Cats, who picked up Gardner Minshew for his playoff game against yours truly. After Jalen Hurts went down, I thought, yes, I'm going to go on to the next round. No, as Minshew went on to score 50 points off the bench. And so here are your nominees for best move of the year. Butterfingers trading for Najee Harris. Harris would go on and have 6 10-point or more games in the final 11 after the trade, including a big and important deciding 24 points in the championship game. Kilgore Trout picking up Puka Nacua off of free agency after week 1, and he would go on and finish as the number 4 overall wide receiver. And the Hot Tamales drafting Raheem Mostert in the 8th round. And he would end up finishing, I don't have that number in front of me, in the top 5. I will look at that number as we get through this. And then the envelope, please. The award for best move of the year is Puka Nacua. He would go on and break both the rookie records for receptions in a season and yards in a season, or I should say receiving yards in a season. He would finish 4th overall in our scoring system. Big reason why Kilgore Trout reached the MHA title game for the 2nd straight season. I felt like this was a unanimous decision. Mikey, I know you had Mostert, and he finished incredibly well, despite you drafting him in the 8th round. But for a guy, and I feel like we've seen this in years past, maybe James Robinson was one of them for G, I think, when he won the championship, that he picked up off free agency to add to his collection of starters. And it would go on and make a huge difference to be able to get that far during the season.
Oh yeah, I mean, Puka Nacua, it's pretty amazing. He wasn't
ridiculous.
He was
almost.
It was somebody that wasn't even like on anybody's radar. I feel like going into the season, it was just
we didn't talk about him in the rookie show.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and I'm sure if last week. We had Joe, and he said he was fortunate enough to have a high waiver, which is true.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even then, you were just thinking about, okay, I'm going to pick him up because Cooper Kupp was hurt at the time. You knew he was going to miss, a lot of time, so the volume was going to be there. I don't think anybody anticipated that when Kupp came back, that Nacua was still going to maintain that same sort of volume, which he did. That's what's more surprising to me.
And honestly, and I'll let you get back to it, but sorry to interrupt, but that was a big, and if I remember correctly, that first week, and maybe he had the higher waiver. I'd have to double check that. Because I think that week, that's when I picked up Kieran Williams. And I was trying to decide between the two. And I was like, well, Cooper Kupp's coming back. If Williams is the real deal, he's probably going to be the starter for the rest of the year. And so while it worked out for me, it worked out better for him. So I was just thinking about that. Go ahead.
No, I just, that was the biggest thing, like, shock to me. And yeah, kudos to Joe for getting him. He was an every week starter. And yeah, I mean, I saw a stat that was pretty amazing a couple days ago where it said, what do these guys have in common? It was like Calvin Johnson is the all-time, season yardage leader. Cooper Kupp, won a triple crown at receiver, and then Puka Nacua now has the rookie record, and all of them quarterbacked by Matthew Stafford.
Isn't that wild?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's so cool and weird, and he's a good quarterback when he's healthy. But yeah, Puka Nacua, and Mostert ended up finishing 2nd overall amongst running backs and finished with 21 touchdowns. So, I mean, this might have been a little difficult, but I felt like it was, Puka Nacua, when you get a guy off free agency that ends up being a game changer, league winner is, I think, the term for fantasy. That's pretty impressive. I mean, these were all, like, going through them again today, like, you could have named any of these guys, really. I mean, for Mostert to have 21 touchdowns, no one expected that. That's a great move. There was someone that you like that a lot of people didn't care about. Miami had such a crazy backfield. No one really knew what to expect. And then Todd, I think it's just a great story for Najee Harris. We mentioned was the T.Y. Hilton Award not too long ago. Or no, worst move of the year. Excuse me, the worst move of the year. And then Todd trades for him, ends up doing incredibly well, and wins him a championship with those 24 points. Like, all three of these guys are really interesting stories. Like T.Y. Hilton, we probably knew it was Dameon Pierce, but these were three pretty cool candidates. So some of the other ones we kind of talked about, Butterfingers picking up David Njoku, but it was only 5 weeks, so it was hard to put that one in there. Kieran Williams, the one I picked up in free agency, who ended up finishing 5th overall, 15 touchdowns and over 1,000 yards rushing. Another kind of best move candidate, but we got it down to 3. Anything else you guys want to say, or should we go to the comeback player of the year?
Don't call it a comeback. Boom.
All right, I like it. So everyone loves a comeback story. Rudy, Michael Jordan, Luke Skywalker, and how about Gladiator coming back for a second movie? That's weird, but I guess happening. In 2023, we saw Saquon Barkley come back from an injury to have an outstanding fantasy football season. So who will earn this year's comeback player of the year? And here are your nominees. DJ Moore. After being nominated for the T.Y. Hilton Award last year, DJ Moore had a great 2023 season. Another nominee, Alvin Kamara. After winning the Bust of the Year award in 2022, Kamara rebounded in a big way this year for the Hot Tamales. And Mike Evans. A lot was speculated that this was not going to be a good year for him after a kind of down season the previous year. And then, of course, the absence of Tom Brady just made it a little worse heading in. But he ended up having a great season. So the winner of the comeback player of the year for this MHA season, DJ Moore. He finished 7th overall amongst all wide receivers. His final tally was 96 receptions, little over 1,300 yards, and a career high 8 touchdowns. Guess what, guys? He also added a rushing touchdown. So who wants to talk about DJ Moore? Mikey?
Why do I have to talk about him?
Oh, I think you know why. I think you know why, kind sir. We'll talk about it more, I guess, when in the where we were right and where we were wrong podcast next week.
I am right more than I'm wrong about DJ Moore. I'll say that.
That's one way to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like, how many years has he played in his career? And he's been crap every single year. He actually shines one year. So, I mean, I give him kudos for what he did this year, but am I sold that this is what it's going to be like in the life of DJ Moore going forward? Hell no.
Oh, come on. So, hell, I don't know where he's going to go in terms of draft capital next year. But if he's in the top 10 or 15, you're not drafting him. All right, let me do it this way. Who would you rather have, DJ Moore or Nico Collins?
You know, the idea of drafting DJ Moore, it's just... It's
answer. Yeah.
Gosh, you're making me choose between those two.
Well, I mean, Nico Collins had a good year. People may think he's on the upswing.
Yeah, Nico Collins all day, baby.
How about DJ Moore or Michael Pittman Jr.?
Ooh, well, Michael Pittman's a free agent. I mean, let's see what kind of situation he goes to.
Well, that's better than a no. Yeah, I think pretty good candidates here for, we talked about Kamara. He missed the first 3 games, but he would finish 12th overall, 10 games of 10 or more points, 3 games of 20 more, got back to his receiving ways at 75 receptions. Of course, Mike Evans came back and racked up the touchdowns, 79 receptions, over 1,200 yards and 13 TDs. He would finish 4th overall amongst wide receivers. But DJ Moore, We'll talk more about it. I don't want to get too much into it because we'll talk about it in next week's show. But yeah, a lot of Justin Fields hate coming in, and no one thought. I don't want to say no one. I think Todd was definitely highest on DJ Moore. I thought Justin Fields could be a little better this year, and Mike was like, "Screw those guys. I want to have nothing to do with them." So we'll talk more about that next week. A couple other guys we talked about: Cortland Sutton, who ended up with double-digit touchdowns from the receiver position, and Deebo Samuel, who did not have a good 2022, came back and played really well this year. All right, so on to our next award, and this is going to be the most surprising player. Last season, we saw Kenneth Walker III steal our hearts with an outstanding performance in 2023. This year, there were a few players who virtually came out of nowhere to win the audience's hearts this year in 2024. Here are the nominees for most surprising player. Kieran Williams, free agent pickup that would finish sixth amongst all running backs with 244 points. We mentioned it, the 15 total touchdowns, 1,100 rush yards, and 32 receptions. How about Sam Laporta, a rookie tight end making waves? Yes, sir, it happened. The Lions tight end would finish the season as the number one scoring tight end with 194 points, 86 receptions, 889 yards, and 10 touchdowns. I'm just so flabbergasted by a rookie tight end doing well. And, of course, we talked about him already, Raheem Mostert. The Dolphins' backfield was a crowded mess to start the 2023 season, and it was Mostert who took on all challengers to finish with 21 total touchdowns. And I need the envelope, please. Thank you, Jimmy Kimmel. I appreciate it. Nice looking suit. All right, and the winner for most surprising player of the year, it's going to be Raheem Mostert, ladies and gentlemen. Todd, we kind of heard Mikey talk about Raheem Mostert. What do you want to say about it, Todd? Raheem Mostert to come out amongst all those Dolphins running backs and ended up finishing second overall.
It's amazing. I don't know what they always say, well, if he's going to be the starter, he's going to get the volume and everything and so forth. But I don't think anyone saw, what Raheem Mostert was, what he did this year, especially in that, in that Miami offense. But I mean, finishing second, that is ridiculous. I mean, I always say, running backs aren't a dime a dozen, and if you can, find one, but I don't know. I don't know what to say on that one. I would have never thought there would have been I would have picked maybe 5 or 6 running backs ahead of Raheem Mostert.
Oh, I'm sure it would have been. That number's higher, but go ahead.
Yeah, probably.
I feel like the number's way higher.
Higher, but yeah, and I mean, you knew that Miami offense was going to be explosive just because of the weapons they have with Tyreek Hill and Waddle, and obviously Tua throwing the ball. But what Raheem Mostert did, I mean, that dude was just scoring touchdowns like it was nothing. And does this put Raheem Mostert? Does this put him? Next year people are gonna be like, oh, we got draft him in maybe the first 3 rounds. I don't know about that, but he at least proved, he has a pulse. Because I mean, even when he was in San Francisco, okay, he'd have games he'd have maybe 1 or 2 games, maybe, or he'd steal a touchdown or something and so forth. But what he's done in Miami, good on him for that. That's pretty good. So good job, Mikey.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you. I humbly accept this award, and I have so many people I want to thank. First of all, I would like to thank myself for having the courage to go out there and believe that in this fantasy football world of people overdrafting running backs, that I could find that diamond in the rough and believe that he could go out there and be a top 5 back. I would like to thank Raheem Mostert for staying healthy and helping my team score the most points in the league for the 2nd consecutive year. And lastly, I would like to thank all of you and MHA for passing on him and allowing me to have him. Thank you all.
Oh man, I wish I had my audience clap bite. I can't find it, but that was well done.
Well, good job.
Some other guys that we talked about for surprising player, Jerome Ford, finished 14th amongst all running backs. Of course, we give Puka Nacua an honorable mention here, but with him winning an award, we went a different route just to have content. So Puka Nacua is definitely in this conversation. Nico Collins, 13th overall wide receiver. CJ Stroud, free agent pickup by the Gonzo Cats, who played pretty well. Sam Laporta didn't get it started as many times as you would hope. I mean, obviously with Quain's situation, he had Mark Andrews for a good portion of the season, so Laporta was on the bench for most of the points, not all of them, but for most of them. And so, yeah, this ended up being a unanimous decision for Raheem Mostert. Let's go on to our next award. So, guys, Google defines bust as in the context of professional sports as a player who failed to live up to expectations, often due to poor performance or injury. Last season, we saw Alvin Kamara disappoint the NWA with his lack of quality in his ability to perform as a first-round pick. So who didn't deliver in 2023? Well, here are your nominees for Bust of the Year. Travis Kelce, a first-round pick for Eaton W's, who scored 80 points less than his previous season, which was quite the disappointment. Austin Eckler, another first-round pick who didn't quite live up to his expectations this year. Then NWA running back watched as 2022's top scoring running back fell all the way to 30th, despite playing in 13 games. He has just 617 rush yards, 44 receptions, and 6 total touchdowns, miles away from his spectacular 2022 season. And Garrett Wilson, the Jets wide receiver, showed glimpses of greatness last season when he finished 22nd in his rookie year. He was drafted in the second round by Eaton W's, who thought, well, Aaron Rodgers is in the mix, he's going to be even better. But he did not perform to those expectations and finished 27th overall. So I need the envelope. Thanks, Natalie Portman. You're looking amazing today. Got to talk after this. I hope so. The winner of the Bust of the Year is Austin Eckler. I'm going to let Mikey talk about this a little bit. And we've talked about it a little bit on the show with the offensive coordinator and the coach. And I think the coach has definitely gone out of that situation now in Los Angeles. But man, oh man, that is quite a disappointment. Number 1, running back overall to number 30. Some of your thoughts, Miguel?
My thought is I dodged a bullet. I'm sure you recall right before the draft, I was just hoping and praying that Eckler would be there when I drafted in the first round. And whew, talk about stank. I mean, that whole offense for the Chargers, other than Keenan Allen, was a disappointment. I don't know what really happened. I mean, obviously, people got fired deservingly over there. They just really didn't use him, and he was injured for the first part of the season. But even after that, his volume, his receptions, everything was down. He wasn't playing as many snaps. Like last year of a contract, I was almost wondering if they were like trying to protect him or something. So who knows? I mean, that was pretty bad year.
He had some good weeks, but it's not enough for the 7s and 5s and 3s and a couple of 3s that we saw from a guy that just was unstoppable one season ago. And it was kind of a similar situation that we've seen it where the Chargers wide receivers go down, and it benefited Eckler in that regard because he's great at catching the ball. But that did not happen. I mean, we saw the receivers go down and get hurt, but it never really even filtered over to him. And I think that had to do with something with play calling. And I don't know if there was a situation where the coach and Eckler were butting heads. It's hard to really tell in that regard, but it was definitely odd to watch. And I know we watched quite a few of those Chargers games because, Mikey had Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert. So we're always trying to watch the games where our guys are in the mix, and it just didn't look right. The offense, and obviously we need a new offensive coordinator that maybe things change, but it didn't change for the better. Austin Eckler had 107 receptions 1 year ago,
Mm.
and nowhere near that this year. And so that's and I know the Chargers are kind of snake bitten, and the league, they kind of the laughing stock in some regards, but it's their own doing. It has to be their own doing. No one's going out there, and people are out there like Eckler. We got to stop him. Yes, of course, that's what's going to happen, but not to that extent where he just fell off the map. And maybe a part of it, I feel like he's always in shape. I don't think that's ever in a situation. Or if he was hurt and didn't let anybody know about it, I don't think that's the case either. It just didn't look great at all. Todd, I don't know if you want to say anything about Kelsey, Eckler, or Wilson. We had this long conversation that Kelsey shouldn't be in the mix because tight ends and their situation and their numbers aren't great. But I mean, he had an incredibly disappointing season compared to what he had a season ago. Still finished third amongst tight ends, but first round pick, not first round value, I would say.
No, and who knows? I mean, obviously Kansas City, doesn't look like the Kansas City, of in previous years. So, that could be a problem too. But Eckler, that's the one that, that's the head scratcher. I mean, why would you not? Why aren't you trying everything in your power to get? I mean, to some degree, he's maybe the second best player on that Chargers team. And why would you not? I mean, obviously, Brandon Staley, who's the coach, got fired because that because he wasn't using him properly. So there's no shocker there. But for Eckler, he's he runs between the tackles, catches passes, everything you want in a running back, and granted he was hurt for a little bit too, but still not utilizing it. That's not good. That's not good, especially when and where you're drafting Eckler too. I mean that is Eckler for the most part for your first round pick should be automatic. And I know that's easier said than done because players have regardless where you draft players, whether it's the first round, second, or whatever, or on and so forth, they still have to perform. But Eckler just not performing up to that. Yeah, and granted he's a free agent this year. Wherever he goes, you hope whoever team he goes to, the coach says, okay, we're gonna utilize him the right way, because they did not do it this year. And Russell Wilson, I mean,
Garrett Wilson? Garrett Wilson?
Oh, Garrett Wilson. I thought you was Russell Wilson. Sorry. Well, and for Garrett Wilson, obviously Aaron Rodgers going down. I mean, then Garrett Wilson definitely was hoping like, oh, gonna have a big year and everything like that. And then, and about one possession in, the season went to crap. So, I'll say for Garrett Wilson, not totally his fault. Because obviously they tried to get him the ball as much as they could, but their quarterback play wasn't the best. But Eckler for me is the biggest head scratcher. Like they just not utilize him the right way. And I think even Justin Herbert would be frustrated too. Would probably agree. Like, yeah, come on, like let's utilize him, and they didn't do it. So that's why they're in the toilet, and who knows what's going to happen next. So hey, more opportunity for the Broncos to keep moving up.
Anything you want to say about this award, Miguel?
I mean, as bad as Eckler was, see if he bounces back. Like Garrett Wilson, my problem with him he lost Aaron Rodgers, and that was a big thing. But I don't know, like with like really truly elite receivers, usually they would still have pretty decent numbers, and I don't know. I just don't feel like Garrett Wilson lived up to the hype that Todd was throwing on him.
Yeah, and I mean, Todd didn't draft him. I mean, yes, he said that Garrett Wilson was going to be great, and Eaton W is the one who drafted him. But he got drafted over guys like AJ Brown I could see why you would draft him over Debo, but like Devontae Adams and as well. Maybe you should have went a safer route. And I don't want to crap on Kevin's team. Kevin said that Travis Kelce should be in the mix for bust of the year. By the way, that was also his. But I mean, this is his top 4 picks: Travis Kelce, disappointing season; Garrett Wilson, disappointing season; Najee Harris was disappointing until he traded him, and then Damian Pierce, who we talked about already, is the T.Y. Hilton Award. Pretty tough 4 to start off with, and then of course he had Deshaun Watson, but. Some of the other guys we talked about in terms of bust of the year, we talked about Tyler Lockett, who was drafted in the 5th round, finished 34th. Jalen Waddle, drafted in the 3rd round, finished 33rd. And Patrick Mahomes, we also kind of talked about because we were, well, if you're going to put someone in the 1st round that didn't do well or didn't live up to his expectations, Patrick Mahomes, who had over 900 points, nowhere near that this year. All right, gentlemen. Now we've reached the grandest award in all of sports. I said it. All of sports, fantasy football's most valuable player. This player exhibits greatness in many aspects of the game. This player exceeds expectations while always remaining off the IL and always coming through in the clutch. Here are our nominees for the MHA's most valuable player. Christian McCaffrey, of course, led all running backs and wide receivers and tight ends in points scored and led the Butterfingers to their 3rd MHA title. Tyreek Hill, a 1st-round pick for the Belt Sanders that paid off dividends. He'll finish 2nd overall amongst all wide receivers and led the Belt Sanders to the playoffs. Hill became the first wide receiver ever to have more than one 1,700-yard season. That's pretty impressive. And our 3rd nominee for most valuable player, Dak Prescott. The Chad Powers fan club waiting on a QB in the draft this year and cashed in with the Cowboys quarterback in the 7th round. 9 quarterbacks went ahead of Dak in the draft, but he would finish 2nd overall and lead Chad Powers to the 2nd overall seed. And so we need the envelope. The winner of the MHA Most Valuable Player Award goes to Dak Prescott. All right, there we go. I'm just kidding. It's Christian McCaffrey. Of course, it's Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. He was great. He was the 2nd overall pick. And what we've seen in the past, he was able to stay healthy for a majority of the year. He got hurt after the season was over. So, yeah, for the full season. Todd, you want to talk about your boy?
Hell yeah. Christian McCaffrey. That's what I'm talking about, son.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, in previous years, it was kind of McCaffrey or Barkley. And with those two, it was, both of them injury prone. But McCaffrey, just so much better. And then last year when he got traded in midseason to the 49ers and what he could do there, I was like, oh, this is going to be, this is a clear sign right here that, he's going to be the old Christian McCaffrey he was, in his first, couple seasons with the Panthers. And, and this year he lived up to it. I mean, this, especially the way that offense is constructed with all those offensive weapons around him. And McCaffrey was scoring touchdowns. And he scored, I think, like 8 touchdowns in 8 straight games. And every week, even when my team, was doing bad, he was still putting up, double digit points, 15, almost 20 points a week. And I could just depend on him, and just, if I knew, I was like, okay, if I'm, if I'm behind, in the morning games or whatever, I had McCaffrey in the afternoon and he would just, it was just like ease. So, McCaffrey MVP this year, and he'll probably be the number 1 pick. What I've seen for mock drafts for next year, he is the clear cut number 1. There's no, it was always the argument, well, wide receivers, but McCaffrey, clear cut MVP of fantasy overall, fantasy MVP of the Butterfingers, and to quote Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that.
I'm just looking through. Here's his game log. And this is something to behold, to say the least. So
Mhm.
24, 20, 20, 44, 12, 13, 19, 26, 17, 19, 29, 20, 15, 37, 23, 11.
Oh, so good.
11 was his worst day of the year.
And it was on championship championship day. His credit, he got hurt, but still. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I mean, I knew I was gonna pick him, and he delivered. He delivered.
Mikey,
Great.
what do you want to say? Anything you want to say about McCaffrey or any of the other nominees or anything?
He says, I knew I was going to pick him. Wasn't there discussion at the
Yes,
beginning, like if
but
Justin Jefferson was
Justin
there?
Jefferson.
yes, but I still had in my mind, just like I did a few years ago, when I wrote down a piece of paper, no matter what I was going to pick, I think it was between Aaron Jones and Nick Chubb. And I said I was going to, if those two players were there, I wrote down on a piece of paper. Now, granted, it's probably not a big shocker. I think everybody knew I was going to pick Aaron Jones, but still keep the suspense, going. But yeah, I mean, I knew, because again, running, I am terrified if I do not have a decent running back, or a top tier running back. And as good as Justin Jefferson is, McCaffrey's better, because McCaffrey can, besides running the ball, he can catch the ball. Unless they put Justin Jefferson in the backfield and start running him like a running back too, okay, then we'll have another conversation. But McCaffrey just he does everything you need him to do. Everything. There's nothing he can't do. I mean, yeah, he can, he could throw a touchdown pass if he wanted to. I mean, we saw that in the NFC Championship. Granted, he had to be, because most of their quarterbacks were, in the infirmary. So, yeah, I knew I was going to pick him, and there it is.
There it is. Christian McCaffrey, your 2023 MHA Most Valuable Player. We also came up with the All MHA team, and we'll quickly go through these. So our quarterback was Dak Prescott. Of course, everything we just said about him, being drafted 7th and finishing 2nd overall. Christian McCaffrey, obviously the number 1 running back. Raheem Mostert, we talked about a few times on the show, running back number 2. CeeDee Lamb, the top scoring wide receiver. He was kind of in that mix for most valuable player, along with Brock Purdy, because that's kind of the guy I was talking about. But CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver number 1, Tyreek Hill, wide receiver number 2. TJ Hawkinson, yes, we picked him over Sam Laporta more because Hawkinson was used way much more by the Belt Sanders than Laporta was for Quain's team. And then just the top, we picked Brandon Aubrey as the top kicker. He was the top scoring kicker. And then we had a discussion about a couple of defenses. We ended up going with Baltimore's defense for Todd's squad. So there you have it. I don't know if you guys want to talk about anything with the All MHA team, but I felt like we got through that pretty simple, pretty easily. I don't think we were fighting for someone else. But there you go, the award show for 2023. So guys, what's coming up on next week's show? Well, let me tell you. We'll conclude the 2023 MHA fantasy football season by looking back on what us so-called experts predicted at the beginning of the season. So we'll applaud those who were right, scoff at those who were terribly wrong, and we'll reflect on those bold predictions as well. And if we have time, maybe we'll do a first-round early mock draft. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I love mock draft. I love the draft. Yeah.
Yes, Todd absolutely loves it. So, anything else, gentlemen? One more show and we'll be done for this fantasy football season of 2023.
But the champ is still reigning. Woo!
Yep, Todd's going to be champion for 364 days. Thank goodness we don't do an off-season podcast.
Yeah.
Or I might have to kill him. And then there would be no champion. It would be vacant.
We do a podcast after the actual draft, I'm just saying.
So we'll pass on that. And Well, there you go, gentlemen. Mikey Renault, Todd Diamond, me and Natalie are going to have drinks after this.
Nice.
We'll see you next time on the MHA podcast.